Okay, please bear with me. I'm just setting up the monitor of the live stream so you get to see what I see. Also, I get to see what you're saying, sorry. Won't be a second. So to do this, I have a laptop sat alongside the computer. So I'm actually using a Chromebook to view YouTube on alongside the main computer. And that's the stream set up. And now I can watch as an observer along with everybody else. Turn the sound off on it. Okay, so let's just check the volume levels. So yeah, voice is coming through good, and the simulator looks good as well. Let's go and jump inside. Right, I'm going to work through the checklist for the 737, which is on the same laptop on the screen, so it's a touch screen. So unfortunately I won't be able to see the live chat until I've got this done, so bear with me. Control 6. Batteries go to on. I've not flown the 737 for a little while, so this is going to be a bit of a journey to this evening. So Control 3 to go into the tablet, and okay, we're going ground power first. So we request ground power. Wait for it to get connected, and it's there. We have ground power. So then we can go overhead, turn the, we don't need the dome lights on. I've set the time so it's fairly early in the morning, but we're not going to need the dome lights. So the inertial navigation system can begin aligning. Just wait for that to align, there we go. And wait for that one. I think I've got it on instant, so we're not going to have to wait for the alignment. Control 6. Arm the emergency lights. Window heats can go to on. Probe heats can go to on. And go down to the FMC. And go to the main menu, FMC, enter the IRS position, so we'll clear that, go to pause init. Next page, pick up the GPS. Previous page, drop that into the IRS. So let's have a look at LittleNavMap. We're going to have to use LittleNavMap. We can't use Navigraph tonight because we're going to Skylake, which doesn't exist anymore. So obviously Navigraph doesn't have airports that don't exist. So ZGKL we are leaving from. So ZGKL goes in the reference airport. And route, origin ZGKL, and we're going to VHHX. And flight number, we'll just make something up. So VFL for virtual flight 123. And the runway we are departing from is runway 19 at no, let's just show you where this is, where we're taking off from. I picked it because it's an interesting standard instrument departure. Liangjiang in China. So we're going to fly down over the corner of China, down into Hong Kong. When we get to Hong Kong, it's going to be an interesting one, because we're going to loop around Lantau Island, and then come back in for the approach through the city into Skylake. So it's the somewhat famous approach through the city. Okay, next page, we're not putting routing in, we're just going to be doing SIDS and stars and a couple of waypoints in between. So runway 19, we want the QP1Z standard instrument departure. Then route, activate, execute, go into departures, sorry, into arrivals. So we're going to go the IGS D15, so ILS runway, IGS 13, there it is. We haven't got a start, so we execute that. Then we go into legs, there'll be a piece in here, so GYA and GLN. GYA goes in first, and it's the first one. VORDME, we'll just check that. 11650. 11650 is that one. Next one was GLN. GLN. And then execute that. We can close that gap up. Next, there should be some vectors at the end, but we're not going to worry too much about that because we'll be looking at the nav screen and flying accurately, hopefully. Okay, so that's a flight plan. We now need to go and put the init refs in. So we're going to be topping out at 35,000 feet on the cruise. Zero fuel weight is pre-calculated. I've got a half a tank of fuel, as is standard in the simulator, which will be plenty. We'll put in 2,000 reserves, cost index 100. Execute that. N1 limit, we can leave alone. Takeoff we'll put to 10 degrees. Flaps, it's a big old... I'm in the 737-800, it's quite heavy. So we'll go a bit higher flaps than normal. 3.93 on the trim. So we need to come back over here. And it's not about that now. Excuse me. That's all looking good. So we've done the init refs, we've done the legs. We move on. So control... Oh, actually, before we do anything else, let's go into the tablet. So in the EFB, I think we can request this from Simbrief. I've put it into Simbrief just so we've got it to look at. And is that supposed to have a map there? Switch map. There's not much to look at, is there? That's interesting. So departure weather. Why is it not showing us a map? Is it broken? Have I broken it? Navigraph charts. That's not coming up with anything either. Oh, it's probably got nothing, hasn't it? Because it's an unknown airport. We'll just leave the operational flight plan on the screen, hey? This is looking a bit blindingly bright, isn't it? Is it this one here? The outboard. There we go. Turn the outboard one over there down a bit as well. Turn this down a bit so it's not so blinding. Okay, so control 1, master control panel. Going to set our takeoff speed. So we'll go out to 220. The runway direction for takeoff is, it says runway 19, but it's actually 188 degrees. So we'll go and set our courses to 188. Just spin these round. We can cheat to get the barometric pressure and just press B. We'll set the initial climb. Actually, we're going to go straight to cruise anyway, so we'll go to 35,000 straight away. Means I can sneak off and make a cup of coffee while we're taking off. Flight directors go to on. We should be able to pre-select LNAV now because we've got a complete flight plan and VNAV. That's all good. Okay. So back overhead. Seatbelt sign goes to on. If I can remember where the seatbelt sign is, it's here, isn't it? Put it on to auto actually. Yaw damper can come on. Cabin pressure set to cruise altitude. So 30. Whoops, not 30. Not 40,000 feet. 35,000 feet. Our fuel pump 1 to on. That's getting ready to start the APU. I'm starting to remember this now. It's a while since I've flown it. APU is to start, and we wait for the exhaust gas temperature to whiz round. So while we're waiting for that, let's have a look. So, driver saying, when the PMDG 737 came out, I had just finished my training. I now fly it in real life, and it's crazy how good the PMDG is. Played it so much, the real thing felt familiar. That's fantastic. What a great comment. Happy to catch a live stream. Your videos from the ATR have been a big help. Oh, the ATR's been a bit of a nightmare though, hasn't it? Because they kept updating it. It had all sorts of bugs in it to do with procedural things, where it made no sense. But as long as you do things in the right order, it seems to work. Have I checked out the Unibuilds A320? No, because it's not out yet. I haven't got the beta. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Or Happy Thanksgiving to everyone in the US, I guess that means. Because the rest of the world don't know what you're on about. How far did I get? Oh, we were waiting for the APU, weren't we? So we can switch over to use the APU, and we can pop back down to the menu and FS Actions, and this is where you radio the ground and say, can you unplug us please? Ground services, release. Or you lean out the window. This doesn't have a tablet to do that, does it? So we just wait for disconnecting. So that's that done. Anti-collision lights need to go to on. I'm just reading through my checklist, trying to catch up. I've kind of distracted myself chattering and reading the comments. The rest of the fuel pumps can go to on now. So wait and see if the low pressure lights go out, and they have. APU bleed can come on, ready to start the engines up. So we perform pushback at this point before we start engines, and we are on a gate, I think. So yeah, we need to go and get rid of those chocks as well, don't we? So in here we need to remove them. And then we should be able to just press Shift and P. Get rid of that master caution. It's just complaining about hydraulic pressure because we haven't got the engines running yet. So in the real world, they would start the engines at this point because they're being pushed back. So you can see N2 is climbing on engine number 2. Wait for it to go past 20%. Advance the start lever on engine 2. How's the pushback going? Has he actually started it? Oh, crikey. I'm not thinking here, am I? I need to release the parking brake. Oh, have we got the brakes not working? Yeah, I'm going to have to pull the plug out of the controller. Do we have brakes now? Yes, we do. But it's still not releasing. Why are the brakes not releasing? Everything else is working. I'm holding the brakes on. This is a nightmare in this aeroplane, isn't it? The brakes have stuck on. It's a bug in the aeroplane. Or a bug to do with the controls. Let me pull the plug out again and plug it back in again. Aha, we may have some luck now. Oh, I know why. I know why. This is what you get for rushing into doing things. I've got the wrong controller profile on. This needs to be on the PMDG. Oops, I think I just went past it. Boeing 747, Boeing PMDG 737. Apply, go back, resume. There we go. Oh, I've locked it back on again. Hurrah! Pushback is happening. That actually gives us some time though to start the other engine. So we're just waiting for the N2 to come up, and we'll keep an eye of how far away from the buildings we are. Let's put it back on the parking brake for the moment. I've done engine start, so we're just waiting for bus transfer now. Did I put the... Yeah, the nav lights are already on steady. I always forget that on the position lights. On the PMDG, it's kind of like they leave it on, so as soon as you have power the lights come on. So we can now cross-feed over to use the engines instead of the APU. The APU bleed can come off. The APU can come off. So the hydraulic pumps can now go on. The packs can now come on, because then we don't need the pressure for the engines anymore. The taxi lights can go to on. Flaps go to takeoff, which was 10 degrees, I think I said, didn't I? I'm not sure if I've got an Airbus controller, which doesn't always agree with what you're trying to do. So we can get a taxi over to the runway now. So let's go and release that parking brake again. You have to hold the toe brakes on to do it. It's got stuck again, hasn't it? There we go. So which way are we going? Turning left. So we're getting a warning on the speed because we can't do that speed with 10 degrees of flaps. We could do it with 5 degrees of flaps. Should we turn head tracking on? Whoa. That's better. So I'm going to break the rules a little bit now and go and turn on the, if I can see it, the TCAS before we even get anywhere near the runway. There's nobody around. We're Billy No Mates out on the runway. Just turn that off for a second. So we just got lights and stuff to do. So I'm taking off from a little airport I found in the middle of nowhere called Liangjiang, which has got an interesting SID. So we're going to fly that route. Well, the airplane's going to fly the route, and then we're going to do the fun entry into Kai Tak, which is always good fun. Right, I better keep an eye on what I'm doing. Should we put the strobes on? Head tracking really isn't as good as it should be. We should make the heading bug match the course really for takeoff. I've also increased the bank angle, so it looked like quite a tight turn on the takeoff. We probably want to slow down the initial speed actually for those turns. 188. Yeah, let's go for 180 knots. I've set barometric pressure. What's the transition altitude here? Let's go and double check it before we go. So, Xinglang weather transition is just under 10,000 feet. That's good then. So we keep our speed limit until the last moment. Should we use the whole runway? Don't think we need it, but yeah, I'm just reading the live stream comments. I haven't been in the 737 for a while. It's gonna, not since the tablet came out, and before that had been a while as well. So it's coming back to me slowly. It's a 10,000 foot runway here, so I can't imagine we're going to need all of it. A little bit misty, isn't it? Okay, let's just double check. The strobes are on. The turn off lights can go on for takeoff, but they come off almost immediately afterwards. I think we're pretty good to go. Oh, there is something. There's always something I forget, isn't there? Rejected takeoff on the auto brake. There we go. I'm going to use manual throttle just for this first bit.
Positive rate of climb.
Whoa, look what happened to the pitch. Gorgeous around here, isn't it? We are going to loop back over the airfield, so we'll get to have a look in a moment. at that wing shaking. And yeah, I'm using head tracking. So, Remy Jansen is saying, is Flight Sim better than X-Plane? Depends what you want. I would say as an overall package, then certainly yes. Should we turn the volume of the engines down a bit? Actually, let's turn the voice down. Advanced audio. It's a bit better, isn't it? I'm not shouting now. Or not as badly. Do I use GSX? No. Okay, so we've hit a... the reason it's levelling out, if you go and look in the legs. Yeah, 9850 feet, look, until we get to YNB. So that's part of the standard instrument departure. If you go and have a look on the map, you'll see it. So that below 9850 feet. If we zoom out a little bit on here, you'll probably see it on here marked in the writing. It will come into view in a moment as we turn towards it. The nice thing, yeah, I'm just reading what Driver's saying. A driver is the person here to listen to if he's a real 737 pilot, because he'll have, he'll be able to tell you. But I think the German guy on YouTube, 737NG is he called, pretty much said, there's nothing in it. He said in various situations the Flight Sim flight model is better, in various situations the X-Plane flight model seems to be better. The really lovely thing about the PMDG one is in the PMDG setup menu in the aircraft, in the equipment, there's 17 pages of settings here. So all of the real world things that the manufacturer might put in for a given carrier, you can choose in the sim. For example, if we go, if I can find it, so we got, yeah, choice on the MCP between the Honeywell and Collins. So I just switched it to the Honeywell one instead of the Collins one. So watch it carefully. Yeah, we just switched the hardware out. But you can do that for lots of things around the aeroplane. You know, where the call-outs are from the systems. ETOPS settings, yeah, it's all sorts of stuff hidden away in it. HGS, this is a good one. Look what we've got now. Head-up display. I never bother with it normally. And it's collimated as well. What I mean by that is if I move my head around, it's on the axis of the body of the aeroplane, which is how it is in real life. But yeah, I've never really played with the head-up display. It's got, once you switch it on, you get an entire control panel down here for it. But yeah, it's interesting. The one thing that I cheat with in the sim, and I can never remember where it is in here, I have got, if you look carefully, I've got a superimposed throttle lever position. Oh, let me turn the head tracking off for a moment. I've got to superimpose the blue bar outside of the throttle lever is where my throttles are, which obviously in the real aircraft you can see where the throttles are. But it just helps you, if it's on autopilot, to know where your throttles are. So when you come off of autopilot, it's really helpful. So yeah, I'm using I'm using the Tobii Eye Tracker, but I've got eye tracking switched off. If you want to see a bit of fun with this, if I turn on Ghost, just to prove that it's here and working, because you don't have to use Ghost. If I go to settings and bubble preview it on, minimize that, so you can now see where my eyes are looking. Yes, if I'm looking at the primary display there, I can look at the nav display, and it's extremely accurate. We've tried it just for fun, standing the other side of the room, and it was within like millimeters accurate. So if you were doing a tutorial video, it would be quite good, I guess, to see where your scan is going during the flight. But yeah, I'm going to turn it back off because it's quite off-putting. To be honest, the Ghost thing, everyone goes, wow, that's great. There's no practical purpose for it. Okay, so now we see where we've gone through 10,000 feet, so the landing lights can come off. If I can click on them. Oh, God. See, head tracking isn't always all it's cracked up to be, especially when the click spots are small. Barometric pressure needs to go to standard. Is that synchronized? You can also control that in the tablet. I think in the real aircraft everything's independent, so the pilot and co-pilot have to match each other's actions. I know in the Zebo you have to do everything independently, but that's one of the options in the FMC, is whether it's synchronized or not. So what else do we get? Let's have a look. Cabin layout. You can have 2 class or single class. That's quite cool, isn't it? Eyebrow windows, yes or no. What that means is up here where we've got the thing now, you know, you've got the little windows up here, so if you were doing astral navigation you can have that fitted out with windows if you really want. But seeing as nobody does astral navigation anymore, it's a bit of a throwback. I'd love to learn it though. So we're going GYA DCT. Yeah, this is the run into VHHX that it's describing here. I'm just going to have a look at on the little nav map so you get to see it. So we're going to come into GLN, and then we need our first point we need to worry about is the CH marker, 8,000 feet. And then we're descending all the way around in a circle and dropping into Kitech. So it should be good. So we've got a little while to go yet. We can find out how long in the airplane. So on the legs page it gives you distance countdown, and if you go to route data it gives you number of minutes. Come back to legs. The other page you've got is the progress page, which gives you and yeah, it does the same again essentially, but it's giving you actual times and the fuel burn down. You can see I'm going to land with tons of fuel. So 300 miles to go to Kitech. That's not as the crow flies, that's 300 miles of route. You know, of programmed route. So yeah, on about the head-up display, I can switch that back off. It is I don't really like it. PMDG setup, aircraft equipment. I'm going to forget where it was now. HDS. So now I've turned it off, you can see it's gone. And we're going to do those quarter windows while we're at it then. Next. Next. Ooh, what's that? The flight improvement package. Oh, performance improvement package. Is that winglets maybe? Eyebrow windows. Yes. If we look up now, we have now got windows where we had bits of body before. It's cool, isn't it? That's a bit more lighting. You can do celestial navigation in Flight Simulator. It does simulate the positions of the stars accurately, according to the time and day and the planets as well. So yeah, the positions of the moon and the sun and the stars and the planets is accurate. So the EFB isn't released to the marketplace on the 737. The update only affects if you purchased it via the store. Yeah, I imagine they're just waiting for Microsoft to update it, I guess. But to be honest, you're not missing a lot. People went on about wanting one of these for ages, so they finally built one. And everybody said, this is crap. I'm just wondering why I've got no map. It's rather interesting. Maybe it's because of... I don't know why. But the strange thing is, this does no more than the real aircraft has. But so people are complaining about what a typical carrier would issue to the pilots. So you get a performance calculator, and you get, maybe if you're lucky, electronic charts and an OFP reader. But this is the main thing that the crew would be using. Yeah, so when PMDG started defending themselves, they said, yeah, well, this is the basics that the carrier gives out to the pilots. And now everyone's complaining about that they've only got what the real pilots have got. It's quite funny, really. If you reset the EFB in the EFB settings, will it bring the map back? Let's have a look. EFB settings. Oops. Factory reset. Okay. So if I come back to here, so I've just wiped my iPad and I've got no map. Simbrief not configured, that makes sense. Simbrief alias. Still no map. Oh, that's a shame, isn't it? Yeah, I can't get any data for VHHX on the weather because it doesn't exist. The best we can do is go for the international airport, which is just across the bay, which is VHHH. So we got 60 degrees, 7 knots. So slight crosswind, but nothing too bad for the landing. Ah dear. So we increase the range on this so we can see where we're going. That will obviously be a lot easier to see. If we do a missed approach, I guess that's going to be a hold that it's going to throw us into. Is it that on the diagram? If we miss it, no, it's got more in the simulator than LittleNavMap has got. That looks like a holdout there. We could get to have a look at it actually if we go to plan mode and zoom in, and then go to the legs page, and we can step through them. Yeah, so it's got a missed approach hold there, look. It's an interesting one, isn't it? And then the way to come back in is you go into the hold and you come back in and loop back in and almost back on yourself to come back in again to have another go. So, are the USB ports modelled alongside the tiller? That's a really good question. There's no, that's a cable, isn't it, for the securing the window. I'm having a job getting this to... If I put the head tracking on there, can I lean behind it? There's no wires. It runs by magic. I noticed the other day actually, I was looking around in here because the real machine has got a USB socket somewhere on the FMC where you can plug in data updates, but this doesn't have them modelled, and it's nowhere on the cockpit sides either. I was digging around it the other day trying to find out where you plug your USB stick in, and it doesn't have it. So they haven't modelled it, I should say. Is it an Apple or a Samsung tablet? I think it's probably supposed to be an iPad, isn't it, with the circular button? That's interesting. So that's saying it hasn't got Navigraph now, but it was coming up with the chart screen. So should we try it? I'll just go and do this on my phone. Sign in with Google. I'm just validating that with Navigraph. Allow, and it should change. There we go. And it still hasn't done this. Yeah, it's just having a bad day, I think. I haven't updated the 737 recently. It may be that they've changed it. If they haven't, I haven't updated it in the last week or so. I haven't checked the PMDG control panel thing, whatever it's called. How are we doing on pressure? And that all looks fine, doesn't it? I had this go completely haywire once in a flight. I think I got kind of into a corner of what it could do in terms of the temperature outside and the pressure, and alarms started going off all over the cockpit. It's quite scary. It always interests me how fast VNAV goes. It gets right up against the maximum for the airframe. It doesn't leave, even 10 knots. That kind of surprises me. We want that back on map mode, don't we? So just above the no smoking side, beside the torch, under the EFB. So it's down there. Interesting. We did a project at work years ago. I'm not going to mention which airline it was for, but for the management of the flight plans, for the files. So the raft of paperwork you carry onto the aeroplane, or you used to, it was the document management system for all of those packs of stuff. And it was quite stringent security around it. Something else. Do I fly on VATSIM at all? Very, very rarely. I have done in the past. It's just having time. And again, talking to VATSIM and talking to people on the live stream becomes really difficult. The thing I do tend to do that's a bit more relaxing and a bit more fun than VATSIM, to be honest, I fly with a group called MyAir, which I got into it because my dad was a member years ago. And that's how I got into flying simulators again, because I didn't mess around with simulators for years and years. I work as a software developer in the daytime, and the truth be told, I didn't have a good enough computer at home. And I'd leave the decent hardware at work, come home, and I would do anything but when I got home. But I got back into it to spend time with my dad, really, and then got more and more interested in it, and ended up joining this group that he was a member of called MyAir. And they fly a couple of routes every week, and a couple of them are nominated as air traffic controllers. And it's just like a very relaxed air traffic control, so you're not going to get hauled over the coals as you would by somebody doing it more properly. You might just get some laughter in the room because everybody will be on channel. It's just good fun. They quite often they do it in Discord, and they have channels for each sector, for example. So you get handed off between sectors. So it works quite well. So you'll only ever be on the controller with a few of the pilots, and then in the middle part of the leg of a flight you're all doing the same evening as each other. For the middle kind of half an hour, it's open mic, so you don't have to be careful. You can just have a chat for half an hour, and then it's down into approach and radio silence and only doing the calls. But they're a great bunch. Just reading drivers' comments about the CAA. That doesn't surprise me. I'm working on some projects at the moment. Again, I can't really talk about them. To do with official documents. That's all I can say. And it continually surprises me because we are working to a very high bar in terms of the future of what's going to be needed for those sort of things. But the systems that are out there, the best one I've seen, which is awful, is the criminal record check website, which is used probably by more people in the country than anybody else. But it doesn't follow any of the guidelines. For accessibility or ease of use, or it's awful. What kind of controller am I using? So I'm flying a Boeing 737 using an Airbus stick and quadrant. I've got the Thrustmaster Airbus kit, which is very nice, but it doesn't always map. So there's some strange things, like I haven't got the undercarriage lever mapped to anything because I haven't got a 3-throw switch to operate it correctly. So I've actually disconnected it from the controller, and I just use the mouse in the cockpit to do it. The notches on the flap lever don't match the notches on this. My dad's got the best one. He's got a replica of this entire unit on the side of his desk. I forget where he bought it from, but all the throttle levers, the reverse levers, everything, it's all there. All the notches machined into the throws for the flap lever, so you have to lift it and pull it, and it's very cool. All the switches. He's also got a replica MCP, or he used to have. I think he's just replaced it actually. The software used by the CAA for pilot medicals, that doesn't surprise me. I mean, you have to remember, until maybe, I don't know, 15 years ago, if you went into Curry's or somewhere like that, they would check the stock on a green screen terminal, like an old Wise terminal from the 1970s. Wow, look at this scenery. I just noticed there's a glitch in the controls there. Look, it had raised the spoilers, so I've been busy burning too much fuel. So I'm going to get another 20 knots out of the aeroplane now because of that. This is a real, I don't know if it's a glitch in the PMDG, but look, letting VNav fly the aeroplane, there's something missing in its configuration and it's not able to maintain speed to get to altitude, so I'm going to force it. We'll lose some airspeed, but we're going to force it up to cruise altitude. It's bizarre that it does it. It has real problems climbing sometimes. Now, a real pilot could probably go delving into the performance data and see that I've missed something. And I probably have. Yeah, unable cruise altitude, there you go, look. So that's me busy talking and not looking. But it'll be to do with the configuration of the climb data that I didn't set up properly. Economy climb, yeah. But this is where the real pilots come in and they can reprogram the aeroplane to do what they want it to do accurately and not just force it as I'm doing, where we're losing a tiny bit of airspeed but we're climbing at 1,000 feet a minute now. It's a view and a half, isn't it? Let's have a look at the map and see where we are. So we're just turning in towards the next waypoint and then we begin this looping route in. It's interesting, isn't it? This thing thinks the top of descent. Oh, it's a deceleration point. Yeah, so is that... Let's have a look at the legs. So 140 miles till VHHX. But we need to be mindful that we need to get to 8,000 feet. So we're at 35. So we've got to lose 22,000 feet basically. So 22 times 3, 66 miles. We'll need to do it. And we can figure that out on here by cheating. We can go measure distance. Because I haven't got the proper performance data for the aircraft built in, so there's 30. So then 36 miles. So that's the absolute limit for starting our descent. Should turn the boats off. VNav should work. I'm just reading the comments there. I'm not using VNav obviously at the moment because I've switched over to vertical speed. So I'm going to begin that descent. Let's just pull this in a bit. We're not going to get to 35, are we? Oh, that means that the calculations are different though, so we're only at 30,000 feet. So should we settle for 30,000? Or 31, we're supposed to be on odds, aren't we? We're travelling east. So it should, yeah, the klaxon just went to tell us we're within 1,000 feet of our target altitude. So it should go to altitude hold on its own, because we've got a target of 31. So it will come off of vertical speed on its own. And then we'll start dropping down to 8,000. How close are we to that mark? I mean, we can always use the spoilers to come down more steeply if we need to. It's not a problem. So we're at 31, let's start dropping back down to 8. So to do this in a gentle manner, we can use vertical speed and just use the green banana to guesstimate it down. Obviously in the real world they wouldn't do that, but we can. It just gives us something to do along the way because we're not having to talk to ATC or anything. So you'll see the throttles come winding backwards in a moment. He says, famous last words. Here they come. So it's going for Mach 0.8 on the auto throttle. So we can't see a green banana yet. We need to be a bit steeper than that. We're getting a warning because of the fuel. We're running out of fuel on the center tank. Yeah, it was just warning us we're getting low. So I'll leave a little bit in it. It's funny, drivers just commented on what I was doing. The number of times I used to fly a lot with work, and I had to fly over to Germany every week basically for a couple of years. And we were on Airbuses all the time, but the number of times they were on spoilers throughout the entire descent, and sometimes quite, strong spoilers. They were out a long way, and I just thought, yeah, they stayed at cruise as long as they could, and then came down as steeply as they could. It's obviously cheaper and faster, and a lot of the time, to be honest, they were making up time because you get the idiot passenger who has to have their bag taken back off, and then you're late leaving and you've missed your schedule, and oh, it's a nightmare. I can't imagine how frustrating it must be for a scheduled flight pilot. We are still not coming down steeply enough. Here it comes. To be honest, looking at the flight plan, it's not an at 8,000, is it? Oh no, it is. He says famous last words. It's at 8,000, at 6,000, at 4,500, at 1,900. It would help us for the approach if we were to get the weather. So what we're after is the QNH, so 3009. I think this is pre-configured for inches, yeah. Don't know what you do without the green banana. What is wrong with that switch? It's not liking it, is it? I just remembered I'm in a 737-800, which is quite heavy. I'm going to need some time to slow down as well when we get to 10,000. Of course, it helps as you descend, you get into thicker air, so the aero braking gets stronger the lower you are. Don't be afraid to use speed. Well, you're in the pressurized cabin, I guess, so as long as you don't accelerate the passengers in a direction, they have no idea what you're doing. I have heard a story. One of the guys at My Air used to work for many years at several airports, and he told a story of a plane that came in and they were like, I think they were nearly 6,000 feet a minute. Rather than doing a long involved arrival route, they shortcutted it and came in direct and very steeply, just so they could get in a few minutes earlier. Have I reviewed the FS2 Crew products? No, I haven't. I haven't had time, to be honest. Are the Thrustmaster yoke and quadrant compatible with the SideTech? Everything's compatible with everything, you just might need to configure it. So yeah, if you've got controls that are mapped on both, you might have to disable it on one and enable it on the other, you know, in the mappings of the whatever's mapped to the buttons. So rather than go straight to 8,000, I'm going to go to 10 and then get rid of this speed. So let's start doing it now. You can see we're coming around onto this run into CH, trying to get rid of some speed, but we've got to get 10,000 feet first. Shouldn't take too long. There comes 10,000, the nose will come up, the speed will fall off. $15 miles out from the turn. And the speed's now falling off, look, because the nose is coming up. So I think we loop round over the top of this airport. So this is the modern airport here at Hong Kong. The one we're going to is down there. Okay, so we are now on speed, so we can come back down to 8,000 feet. And to do it, we'll do a flight level change. So we're below 10,000 feet now. I think the barometric pressure was, what did it say? 3009. There we go. So landing lights are on. Let's have a look at the legs page. 6,000 feet for golf. Okay. Let's have a look outside, so we've got a bit of time now. Yeah, I was just going below 10,000 now though, so we've got 250 knots. And now we're dropping to 6,000. So we do a level change again. Could probably do with scrubbing some more speed off before we get too close. Probably wasn't a good idea to do that so much in one go, but we'll catch up. So it's then 4,500 for D15, which isn't actually marked on here, which is interesting. So we're going to be about 1,000 feet higher than we should be probably by the time we get here. Yeah, here comes the banana again. Or 500 feet higher than we should be. Oh, it's doing quite well though. The plane's catching up. So if we just set this straight for 4,500. We can now go for some flaps as well. A bit of crow braking going on. Let's have a look from outside. So we've got to fly all the way along here. We're just following the routine. It's not like we've got to rush to get down. It was marked, it was just wasn't in view. So we're going to get to 4,500, hurrah! But we're going to start easing the speed off as well though, just to make the airplane struggle a bit more. Look at that view of the new airport. The reason this doesn't happen in the real world is because this isn't here. This approach was here before this airport was built. There we go, we're at the correct height. Let's pull the speed down once more to 200 knots. Next stage of flaps. Oh, we're a little bit early with it. Let's go to 180 then. So next target is, let's stop that from centering, 600 feet when we get to the turn. So it's pretty much a straight line in from here, so, and I'll be going manual as soon as we're lined up. Okay, next stage of flaps. Okay. There is a radio here, look, so 111.90, 88 degrees. Of course it has to be the opposite end of the blooming... Just to help you line up the approach in. What was it? 11190. So you can see the guidance there. So I'm going to go manual now. I've had enough of the autopilot. It's now complaining because I've not got the wheels down. So all we're following now is this. The buzzing will stop in a moment. See? So we've gone slightly off to... What I'm tracking here is this guidance. But then the guidance will take us into a hillside. We have to turn at the last moment. So what might be fun, and our friend was on about this earlier, is if you make this a bit later in the day, you might get to see the lights on the way in. So if we do this at sundown.
Airspeed low. Airspeed low.
I haven't got the landing lights on, have I? Or did I? I did. Let's go for... There we go. Now we can see. We're a bit high. To marker. So you can see the airfield over here. There should be some lights on the ground. I'm not sure how far you can see them away from. There's like sequencing flashing lights that guide you in the last little bit. I'm staying a little bit high on purpose, if you're wondering. Could probably do with some cabin lights, couldn't we? But I haven't got time to look up and get the dome light on now. We can see everything we need. So where are the flashing lights? This is just the stock version in the sim, mind you. It's not any special version. There's the flashing lights. So we're almost on top of them. So it doesn't draw them then until you're quite close. That's a bit of a shame, actually.
500. 400. 300. 200.
Airspeed low. Airspeed low.
Yeah, I was just worried about putting the nose down for this final
50.
drop in. We're still a bit high.
30. 20. 10.
Everyone clap. To be honest, the 737 isn't the most difficult plane in the world to fly. It almost flies itself. It took a while to remember, once I came off autopilot, how to do things, but I was a bit slow at times. Half of that was just trying to see the pretty pictures outside. Head tracking. Should we turn the daylight back up? It's like the Truman Show, isn't it? Hong Kong Harbour. There is a very good free add-on from FlightSim.2 for Kitech, which makes it a much more accurate to the period, and obviously it's a bigger drain on resources, but you get things like a checkerboard on the hillside to mark the turn-in point, things like that, to get your orientation right. The lights through the city are much more obvious, and there are many more boats and things in the harbour, and bridges and things like that. But this is just the stock scenery. Although I do have the seafront simulations, I think they're called. So they've put all the boats in the harbour that you can see, or a lot of them anyway, that otherwise wouldn't be there. So there you go, Kitech. So if you do the runway 13 approach into Kitech, it's worth doing in the sim because it's good fun, as you saw. You follow the radio beacon in and then look out for the runway to your right. It's pretty straightforward. It's always a balance, isn't it? The stock airports tend to favour frame rate, whereas the study level airports, or steady level, they're not really steady, are they? The accurate airports, the payware ones, are a huge drain on resources. It's like I've got a version of Stansted that is exactly like the real place, but it runs at about, it takes 20 frames a second off of what you're capable of running at, but it does look incredible. Go and find a gate to park up at. Turned off. Oh no, I haven't turned off the landing lights yet. Let's do that. Remember what I said about click spots being tiny? Let me just slow down. See, look, I missed that with the mouse then. It's crazy. It's so difficult. I got fed up of following the yellow lines. There's nobody here. I discovered the cause of the frame rate issues is to have the AI aircraft in view. When it spawns them in, that's what kills the frame rate on approach to an airport. So the solution to frame rate woes is to get rid of the AI aeroplanes out of the sim. Unfortunately. There's another add-on you can get that gives you the electronic boards at the end of the lines on the gates. It tells you the gate number and, with arrows on them and stuff. It's very good. I forget what the official name of them is. Okay, so we need to put the parking brake on. While we were taxiing back, we could have gone and put the APU back on, but the shortcut way of doing it, I'm going to turn the head tracking off because it's being a pain, is you can just go to ground services and request the put the chocks in place and put the ground power in place, and then once that's on we can switch straight to it and not bother with the APU. Obviously that's more dangerous in the real world because people are walking past the engines. Usually on the taxi back you put the APU back on. Okay, so now we've gone over to the APU, we can shut the engines down. Turn some lights off. Anti-collision light can come off. Strobes can go off. Taxi light can come off now. And obviously you can just go around the airplane turning everything off that we turned on earlier. Yeah, of course they're spring loaded, aren't they? What have we forgotten? GNS. It's really cool that all the test systems work, or most of them, on this as well. I think that's about it. So obviously you can request that they remove ground power. I should have turned it off first, by the way. And then you just, I need to go and turn off the arming of the emergency lights, don't I? And then batteries can go off and be cold and dark. One of the things that they've hidden in this, if you have gone cold and dark, if you hold the menu button on, this magically comes back to life, so you can still do things like, you know, requesting. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. So you can go in here and say, you know, like opening doors and things. So left door open. You see it's just, well, we were too late to see the animation. So it's just open, so people can now fall out of it. Ground services, ground power, request, air starting, no, we don't want that. Air conditioning unit, no. No, that, why is that inhibited? We haven't got stairs, have we? What would be stopping? Is it because the ground power is connected? Is that inhibiting the jetway? I've never really played around with much of this. Portable water, maintenance van, fuel truck. Stairs. Oh, let's get some stairs then, if we can't have the jetway. Oh, is that why? Pax entry stairs. Jetway, there we go. Request. Hurrah! So now they're going to drive the jetway into the airplane. Hopefully put it over the doorway. Very good. It's just insane that you can do all this stuff with the simulator, isn't it? Could I set up the flight plan like that? How do you mean? I'm just reading backwards through the comments. Main thing after a 737 flight. Yeah, they really are, aren't they? They're cramped as anything. I mean, it's. I always wonder, when you look at this from a little way away, climbing over the... I mean, okay, the chair moves a little bit, leaning over and grab, that's why the handles are there, isn't it? To grab hold of, to kind of drop yourself in. It's a nightmare, really. Can you program the flight plan with everything off? Should we try it? I never tried. FMC, no, you can't go in, look, because the airplane's not powered up yet. But you can go into the setup. The main reason for doing so is if you ever get the 737 fail spectacularly on you, it's because you need to go into FS Actions and go to ground maintenance. It has consumables. You can run them down and run out. If you run out of hydraulic fluid, you're in trouble. You'll suddenly find that you're losing control input. I had it happen once during a flight. And I just managed to get onto a nearby airfield before it. That's how I discovered about it, because I hadn't read about it. That over the course of, sort of 10 or so flights, you'll be running the hydraulic fluids low. But yeah, it's good fun. Is anybody making an old like 737-200 or something like that, or a 727 with all the dials and everything, with the steam gauges? But yeah, it would be good fun. I'd much prefer the older planes because it just gives you more to do. Obviously, if you're flying with air traffic control, then having something that's a bit more automated is easier because your workload is less, because there's only one of you, remember, whereas in the real plane there's two of you. Yeah, the 737-200, the earlier one, and I guess the 727 as well, the early models of it, are a handful. It's like the early model 747, isn't it? It's got an analog cockpit with lots of dials everywhere. But then they had an extra crewman. They had 3 in the cockpit, sometimes 4. So you had a flight engineer and a navigator and a pilot and a co-pilot. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there, and I'll see you all again soon.